Here. And trustee Jeff Davis.
Here.
Rory Rodino, Sergeant at Arms. Here. Trustee Maureen O'Keefe, absent, excused. And that is it.
Well done.
It looks like we have a code report tonight. Is that true? Let's jump to the code report.
Speak loud enough.
Do you want a mic?
Speak loud enough. Good evening. My name is Officer Brooks with the 7th Precinct Cope Office. I work with Officer Anson on day tours this week and on nights. That's why I'm here tonight. And also Sergeant Paul out of the 7th Precinct. Just going to go over the crime reports for the last month from March 5th to 5th. We got 2 reports of burglaries in the area in Rocky Point. On March 5th was the subway on Route 25A. Another subject broke through the front door of the glass of the subway and took $800 of cash out of the register. And the second one on March 11th on King Road. The report, somebody witnessed a white male, approximately 30 years of age, in dark clothing, walk out of the driveway between 12 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon into a red sedan. Stole jewelry and cash out of the residence of the house. And we also have 3 larceny reports as well on March 27th on Broadway, Rocky Point, Ale House. The subject took a jacket off of a chair where somebody was sitting. It was his jacket, and they took the wallet and $100 cash out of that person's jacket. On March 6th, the utility trailer, a ride-on mower, and a snowplow were taken from a yard. The resident was on vacation down in Florida for the season. So those 3 items were taken from his yard. And someone reported on Broadway, 85 Broadway, a wicker chair is removed from her yard. Overdoses, there was 1 overdose for that month, this past month. It wasn't a heroin overdose, it was oxycodone. And he was transported to the hospital. That's basically for the month, past month. I'll leave a number. Is there somewhere I can leave a number for the Cope office? They need to call. One of the biggest issues we're having, 2 of them, are the phone scams. I don't know if anybody fell subject to these phone scams where they call and they say they're from the IRS, but they speak in a foreign accent. They say that you have a warrant for your arrest. There was a report on the news a few weeks ago. Believe it or not, lots of people fall victim to it, and these people get thousands of dollars. I mean, I fell victim to it, but they called my house and they traced the number back to a Washington state. But you know, who knows where the number's coming from? They can get these numbers from anywhere. They can go to the basement of the house and mask the fraud now. You know, so just if the IRS says if you owe them money, they're going to send you an official letter and a point of contact, the number to call. They're not going to call you on the phone and say that you owe them money and there's a warrant out for your arrest. It's not going to happen. The other issue too that I see with a lot of larcenies that didn't have any last month, but the automobiles, leaving your cars unlocked. Oftentimes these kids actually going through the cars, just take a loose change and any value out of your vehicle. So, you know, try to keep them locked up. In one instance, I had a woman that told me they took her night deposits out of her vehicle. I said, how much is a night deposit? She said $5,000 in a money pouch. I don't know why somebody would tell them to keep that much money inside their car, or their wallets, or their pocketbooks, or their laptops. But general rule, I always say, if you have anything of value you want to take in, just bring it in the house, you know, for safeguarding. Don't leave it in your car. They find an unlocked door, or they break through the glass, you know, they'll take anything out of there, just so they can get a couple dollars cash out of it. So I'll leave my number up here.
Go ahead, say it.
Officer, does it make any sense to report these scams, these telephone scams to anybody?
Absolutely.
Who do you report it to?
You report it to a patrol officer, call 911, they'll take a report for it. What will happen at that point, I'm not really sure, because like I said, a lot of these phone numbers are coming from different states. It seems to be the targeted people are the elderly and the minority community. So somebody will call and say that, you know, that your son-in-law is involved in a car accident, and you just send, you know, $400 cash right away. But believe it or not, people do it all the time. It happens. They'll go down to a local store, get a Western Union MoneyGram or a MoneyGram card, and they'll read the number over the phone to the person, and then they get, you know, the amount of money they tell them to send. So, you know, it's a scam. It's a complete scam.
Yeah, several months ago, I didn't fall I didn't fall victim to
Right.
it, but I had somebody call saying that they were from PSEG,
Right.
saying that our electricity was going to be shut off, you know, within like the next couple hours if we didn't give the money.
I had the owner of a music store in Shirley, happened to him. He told him that his business owed, I think it was like $400 or $500 to PSE&G. And there's a center right in Patchogue on Montauk Avenue you can go to and pay your bill. So the guy told him over the phone, you owe us this amount of money, just go to local Walgreens and get a MoneyGram card and come back and read it to me over the phone. So he got the MoneyGram card, he read the number off the card, and he got sucked out of $500, I think it was, that he paid to whoever. So that happens all the time too. But yeah, absolutely report though. Yes.
Do you know if they made any progress with the burglary here on King?
That I don't know. I know,
Detective
which one-
McGuire's.
with the mail that came out of the driveway? or
Yeah,
was
that
it-
was McGuire. I know Detective McGuire was working on it. They
Yes,
sent, they sent the
McGuire.
forensic team to my house to get the copies of the videos from my DVR.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure if they made any progress with it.
Yeah, because they did have video surveillance. They
Yeah,
said,
they-
I read the report.
they copied on mine.
They had a white male coming out of the driveway of the house.
Yep.
They gave a description of it too, 5'10", 170 pounds, went into a red sedan.
Yeah, I got the red car too.
Okay.
I just
Did
wasn't
you
sure.
get the plate number off the car?
The forensic guys took the video. They were going
Okay.
to try to get it.
That's another issue too, like if there's something suspicious or a vehicle that's in the area that doesn't look right, if you could try to get the plate number off it, that helps a great deal. Because oftentimes people will call and say, it's a suspicious car on my block, and it's a gray Honda, and by the time we get there, it's gone. Or, you know, if you could at least get a plate number off it, if you try to pinpoint it to the address, you know, or the owner, registered owner of the vehicle, where the address goes back to, so, that would help. Anybody else?
Officer, we'll take the number and we'll put it in our newsletter and we'll get it out there.
Okay. Any questions about squatters or any suspicious activity, please call the 7th Precinct Co-op office. It's 852-8775. And we'd like to know, especially with these abandoned houses, we're having a huge issue with them as well. So people renting these abandoned houses out that don't actually own them, they just pocketing the money. So just give us a call. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the newsletter and also on the back table were minutes. Can I have a recommendation for waiving the reading of the minutes? Connie, second? Joe? Second. All those in favor of waiving the reading of the minutes? Thank you. Do we have a membership report?
Yeah, we have about 210 members and 10 new tonight.
Wow, 10 new today. Fantastic, thank you.
And please, anybody that hasn't signed in, please sign in so we can count you as present. So when we have a vote, you're able to vote. If anybody hasn't signed on your way out or...
Now that we have all these willing volunteers here, there are 3 committees that are presently active. The Beautification Committee, the Farmers Market Committee, and there's in addition to the Land Use Committee, there's an additional environmental committee to try and get the community to be a nitrogen-aware community. And for beautification, contact Kathy Weber. For Farmers Market, contact either Virginia, Susan, or myself. And for the environmental committee, please contact me for that. Is there any other old business? You can see I'm moving through in case Mr. Zeldin gets here. His rep is here, but as soon as he gets here, we'll go right to that. And, so, if you enjoyed or were struck by our 3rd meeting regarding land use and the Thurber property, there was Dan Gazzari, right at the end of that meeting, made a suggestion, and I'm going to turn it over to Allison right now to pick up on that as new business.
The suggestion was that we actually form a formal committee to try to get some ideas together, and so instead of having it open, anybody can join, but please, if you're interested in participating, let me know, and we'll try to have actual sessions, and then we'll report back to the next Civic Association meeting.
Corresponding, there were 4 letters coming out of Legislative Sarah Ecker's office. excuse me, one was to the New York State Parks Department asking for some funds to help in the expense or defraying some of the costs to moving the train station and making it to a park. That was one. We have a copy on that. I'll include this in the next newsletter. And then, Susan, you want to do the other thing?
There's a letter to the EPA from Sarah Baker's office. The EPA recently held a public review period to solicit comments regarding their proposed amendments to the 2005 rule regarding dredge material disposal sites in the Long Island Sound. These amendments were based on the final dredge material management plan submitted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on July 11, 2015, which recommends the continued dumping of 30 to 50 million cubic yards of potentially hazardous dredge material over the next 30 years. Attached here too are comments I submitted in opposition to the DMMP and the EPA's proposed dredge dumping site amendments. I have and will continue to fight to protect our environmentally sensitive Long Island Sound from potential pollution. Please do not hesitate to call me with any questions, concerns, or comments you may have. So this letter was to us regarding the letter she sent to the EPA. Anyone wants to take a look at the letter, and we will put this in the next newsletter. We also have Board of Zoning Appeals for tomorrow, but I looked through it and there were no Rocky Point properties here. And that will be correspondence we have.
I can do a tap dance. We're running ahead of schedule, but I'm kind of moving it quickly because Mr. Zeldin, our representative, is on schedule and to be here in 6 or 7 minutes, so that's good. We've devoted the whole other hour, and I think the format is about 20 minutes of discussion, bringing you up to date on legislation, and then open discussion for questions. And again, I'm going to ask it, hold yourself to 2 minutes. Joe, do you have anything going on in terms of events? You want to talk about Europe?
Yeah, no. 12th century, yeah, no. We have in June, I'll get that information to you. It was just approved tonight, or today, with the AARP. And it'll be a hurricane or an awareness program that will be given here in June. And we'll get that information out, and everybody's welcome. There's no charge for it. And it comes through the governor's office, so, and through the, I believe the National Guard puts it on, and there's a whole program. So hurricane awareness and any type of, high winds or things like that, that would be harmful to us.
Good information.
Peter we have Peter, like Peter does.
I'm very happy to announce that the Rocky Point Car Club has taken off quite well. We are merging with the entire Long Island Association, which now makes us 800 classic cars, 30 years and older, large. Classic cars are known to be a popular fundraiser for VFWs as you head out east. We're going to be coordinating with Joe to help him raise some funds here by bringing a lot of these car shows right here to Rocky Point. And once we get that under our belt, to possibly get under supporting the fire department too.
Great. Thank you. Kimberly?
Councilwoman Bonner is hosting her 4th semi-annual Go Green event. We usually have 2 per year. The first one is in May 14th. We do a pharmaceutical take back, e-waste drive, and paper shredding. It's hosted at the Rose Tower Cafe Center, and we're there from 9 to 1. And we also
the date again? Right, Rose Tower Cafe Center, the date please?
May 14th. May 14th, 9 to 1. We also have pre-season beach parking stickers on sale, and that information's on the town's website.
One of the other things that I think we as a whole group should be proud of is that through the Land Use Committee, we've identified, and Al Hansen is very upfront on this one, is identified the number of vacant homes. Well, we identified one particular one that is owned by Suffolk County. Maybe Teresa, do you have an update on that? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, we've been working with Amy Hughes, who is in the planning department, and through one of the other legislators, Housing Our Home is Heroes bill, we're hoping to make it a veterans home, but we're still trying to work out, the case with the process. We have a meeting on Monday with the Director of Veterans Affairs, so hopefully we'll be able to continue moving that forward. It's right now it's on the top of our list of projects.
Which means it's moved to trying to get, for not-for-profit, for the vets,
Yeah.
so that the vets can have another identified space, a lot, in Rocky Point for another vet.
So we're still trying to work out what the process is going to be through the county, but hopefully we're moving it forward.
Is that in conjunction with the town?
Right now, no.
But the process is, right, at some point, or no?
There's a few different routes that we can go through, and we haven't decided yet. So I will give an update at the next meeting.
Fantastic, that's a good thing. I know it's been cold this week, but we're still looking at the farmer's market, and I definitely need some committee, some volunteers to help with that. As we know, we run from May to November on Sunday morning from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we've got all the approvals, so we're looking forward to making another 5th year. So that's kind of exciting. Please contact me. Rory.
For the announcement, the Noah Halleck Homestead is open for the season, it's open for tours starting this Saturday. Those of you who don't know, Noah Halleck home is built in 1721, the oldest house in Rocky Point. It's a historic living museum, and we give tours every Saturday from 1 to 3. And Jeff, what's the address? It's on Lower Halleck Landing Road.
On Halleck Landing Road.
Halleck Landing Road, all the
At
way
the corner of Culross.
to the end, just before you get close on your left side. It's on the, what is it, the what?
It'd be on your left if you're heading towards the
West side.
west side.
So this day we're open until, till December, but this is the opening day on Saturday, so please come and have a look.
Jeff, do we have an update, oh, I'm sorry, Janet, do we have a update on the Rocky Point Rotary 5K run?
No, we do not yet. We're still working on it. It's gonna be like in October.
October, okay, good. And Jeff, Carlson, do you have an update on Rails to Trails?
Yeah, so the Rocky Point Civic asked me, Legislator Anchor put together, I guess like an advisory board of all the local, the neighboring civic associations about the rail trail project, and we met last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago on the 24th. There's no real new information to give you guys that I know of. We're kind of just, this whole thing is like, I guess it's on the front burner again, is the best way to say it. All of the civic associations, who was there? Quorum, Middle Island, Sound Beach, Miller Place, Mount Sinai.
Sure, Wayne River.
And everybody is gung-ho crazy about having this happen. There's been a couple speed bumps in Rocky Point, as everybody knows, over this issue. But we're looking to push through that and get this thing going.
Fantastic. Rory.
The speed bumps in Rocky Point, have they been made smaller bumps? Do we make
Most of them are
headway?
human beings, so you
can't.
There hasn't been any, there's supposed to be more community forums to discuss this, and I'm sure there will be in the future. This was just, I was representing our civic at the meeting, there was one representative, about 10 of us there. We are the only people that are having issues. Everybody else wants this done already. There hasn't been any progress on the speed bumps.
What are the speed bumps?
The Rocky Point residents.
And I want to say something, because I'm one of the speed bumps, I think. All right? And the reason
I didn't know it was speed
well,
bumps.
but I want everybody to know from my list. The one thing that I asked the people who are in charge of this to do was to take soil samples of the defoliated property over many years. It's a railroad bed. And make sure it is safe. That's all I did. So if that's the only speed bump, I think that's an appropriate one. That's
And
all.
I will make sure that what body of people hears that, and see if we can make sure that's not a big deal to do that.
Great, okay, and my last comment was for our May speaker was going to be H2O. You can watch that coming up. I think our congressman is here, so I think, come on up. It's your floor. It's right here if you want to take it.
What do you prefer?
Mike.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for the invite to be with you here tonight. I'm excited to be here. I will start off by saying it is a huge privilege to be able to represent the 1st Congressional District. It's not something that I take for granted, and with all the challenges that are facing our country and our community, the time to be there right now with all the fights that we're involved in. I just want to let you know, first off, just a very heartfelt thank you. It is a privilege, and I don't take that for granted. When you first get to Congress, they give you one of these pins. It's your member ID. Your seniority number goes on the back of your pin. So there's 435 members of the House of Representatives, and the number on the back of my pin is 434. 435. Ryan Zicke of Montana is 435. I give him a hard time. I say that's because he's a Navy guy, but I immediately apologize because he was a 26-year Navy SEAL, and he's a lot bigger than I am. So I cracked my Army-Navy joke, and I quickly apologized to move on. But even though I just got there, just over a year ago, the battles, whether we're talking about securing our country with threats that we face from abroad, or improving our economy, or trying to tackle challenges on immigration, or healthcare, or education, you can't wait. I just, from day one, was trying to speak up as much as I can on your behalf. And I'm looking forward to the discussion here today and being able to answer some of your questions. A lot of a member's work is related to the committees that they're assigned to. So I'm a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and Transportation Infrastructure. One of the things that's very unique about the 1st Congressional District is it's, as you all know, it's almost completely surrounded by water. And the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, it's not just about roads and bridges, railways, the Army Corps of Engineers, so all of the efforts with regards to dredging, coastal erosion, it's all under the aviation, it's all under the jurisdiction of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Veterans Affairs, a lot of people who live in Suffolk don't realize we not only have the highest veterans population of any county in the state, Suffolk County has the 2nd highest veterans population of any county in the country. A lot of people who live in Suffolk don't even realize that. And our proximity to the city, and still a lot of memories remain of what happened almost 15 years ago in the city. And even if you haven't served, you have loved ones who have served, this is a very proud, patriotic community. So from the respects of serving on the Veterans Affairs Committee, but also on the issues we face on the Foreign Affairs Committee, there are a lot of important issues I'm sure that you all care a lot about. I was asked to touch a little bit on, the veterans was one of them? Was one. Well represented here. Yeah, and here we are inside the Rocky Point VFW. And by the way, you probably are all very familiar with this particular, the members here of this VFW post, but I will vouch for wherever I go, anywhere in Suffolk County, in the 1st Congressional District, you will find Rocky Point VFW members there representing Rocky Point with their jackets on, marching in parades like far away from here, and it's just a real testament to the character of this particular membership, that they're out so much in the community beyond Rocky Point. On the Veterans Affairs front, I mean, the primary jurisdiction, I guess, of Congress is not just legislative, it's also oversight. So coming to light the fact that we have veterans who are calling the suicide hotline and are getting a voicemail and not getting a return phone call. A veteran taking the time to call a suicide hotline, not getting a return phone call is outrageous. That's one of the things we're working on, because just in the last few weeks, that came to light with the IG report. So as we go through the appropriations process, trying to ensure that that doesn't happen anymore. And also, there's a lot of our tax dollars that get wasted. A perfect example is in Denver, they're creating a VA hospital that was originally budgeted at $600 million. It's currently, they're currently $800 to $900 million over budget. And they aren't operating off what they call a budget, they're operating off what they call an $100 million in a hospital construction project in Denver. You're taking away the opportunity for me to be able to fight for just a little bit of funding to be able to help several hundred veterans in a county like Suffolk. So there's a lot that we're working on the veterans front. I actually introduced legislation to make the PFC program a national program. I've gotten a couple of veterans bills passed the House. I'm trying to get past the Senate right now. One of the bills with regards to veterans, they apply for their benefit, they pass it because it takes years sometimes. While they're waiting for a result on their application, they pass away and then their family can't get the benefit. So we have a bill to fix that, pass the House, waiting for it to pass the Senate. Also out here in Suffolk County, our real estate values are higher than the national average. People have a difficult time applying for VA home loans because of the cap. So the bill to lift the cap, pass the House, and wait for it to pass the Senate as well. So we have like different pieces of legislation that have worked its way through the process. But that's a little bit. Now, I will say, if for any of you veterans in here, or you know anyone who is a veteran, and they need assistance, I have two people in my office in Patchogue who they are full-time just working on veterans issues. And I have someone in my DC office who is full-time just working on the policy end with the Veterans Affairs Committee. We have an office in Patchogue, we have a website online, I'm on Facebook and Twitter, you can sign up for email updates. I do once a quarter teletown halls where I'll call people, you can ask questions. I do mobile office hours where I'll come out in the community and obviously events like tonight, just coming by to answer your questions. I really enjoy this, so thank you again for having me. I was also asked to touch on TPP, right? The Trans-Pacific Partnership, is that right?
I was going to ask that as a question. I want to actually compliment you on the fact that you're doing stuff for Plum Island and that you're against the Army Corps dumping the tailings into the Sound. And from an environmental standpoint, how does that fit in with your philosophy on TPP? That was my question.
So. Great. So the first part of that, and I see Kevin Dowling is here. He's from, I didn't even realize he was going to be here. Kevin's in our DC office, but from the North Fork, so he's not too far from home. Good to see you, Kevin. So Kevin works hard. We try to get a lot of positive things done on the environmental front. One is I introduced a bill called Long Island Sound Restoration Stewardship Act. We're trying to get an annual investment of funding so we don't have to fight as much for it annually to help improve the quality of the Long Island Sound. That is one of our bills. I also have a bill I introduced to stop the sale of Plum Island to the highest bidder. If you've ever been to Plum Island, it is beautiful. You think you're thousands of miles from here. The wildlife, the seals, the coastline, it's a beautiful island. And right now, the law says that we're supposed to just sell it to the highest bidder, but you can't even develop it because of zoning. So for us to be able to use what is tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure for research investment, to be able to put that to good use, plus maybe having some kind of public access for the island would be great. A lot of co-sponsorship on that bill. We're trying to get it out of committee and get it passed as well. We have a lot of Army Corps projects. I mean, we are high maintenance as far as the Army Corps goes. They hear from us a lot, especially because of the Sandy recovery. So a lot of different priorities throughout the district. Sandy impacted the South Shore Barrier Beach a little bit more than what you saw throughout the rest of the coastline around the island, but it's really the Army Corps. They have projects all around the district. Bill Doyle, who's in my office as well, sitting right next to Kevin, who works in my Patchogue office, is the person who, from a constituent services end, does the most amount of communication directly with the Army Corps. But Kevin and Bill both spend a ton of time interacting with them on that front. So the Trans-Pacific Partnership is a massive trade deal that was entered into between the United States and all these dozen other countries around the Asian Pacific Rim. So I would support a good trade deal. This is not a good trade deal. It's been called NAFTA on steroids. That is a good way to describe it. I've read it. This thing is NAFTA on steroids. This isn't just about, when you're reading through it, this isn't just about how do you help improve the business climate in America, how do you create more good paying private sector jobs. As a matter of fact, I would argue that we would lose jobs as a result of this particular trade deal. And it goes into all different other issues that have nothing to do with trade and the economy. So last year, the first step of the process was passing something called Trade Promotion Authority. I was under a lot of pressure from House leadership to vote for the Trade Promotion Authority. At first I was thinking, all right, they want my vote so badly, I might be able to leverage this for a bridge from Long Island to Connecticut. And as they kept trying to get me to vote for it, I was like, maybe I'll just get a bridge to Israel. It'd be a lot of local jobs. I mean, even if the bridge doesn't go all the way, we'll just create as much of the bridge as possible. They did that in Alaska, right? They just created a bridge that didn't even end on the other side. All kidding aside, there was nothing that they would have been able to offer to get me to vote for it. It was just, it's bad for America, bad for the American economy, bad for Long Island. I believe that right now we're in the middle of a presidential campaign. I believe we need to thoroughly vet any of our presidential candidates, all of our presidential candidates, as far as what their trade objectives are. Going past the sound bites, the 60-second answer as to what they want to accomplish in trade. Trade objectives is more than a 60-second answer. That's something where they need to release, it's like 100 objectives, 150 objectives, which essentially was part of what TPA was. We put 150 trade objectives into law for negotiation of TPP, and another one is called TTIP, a trade deal that is being negotiated with European countries. I believe that instead of Congress weighing in at the end of the process to say, okay, these should be the objectives on a deal that is pretty much finalized already, that is a joke, that is an insult. At the beginning of the process is when you should set the trade objectives. You don't negotiate a deal and at the end of it you set trade objectives that fit the deal. So that was a little bit insulting as well, because TPA, I read the current draft of TPP right at the end of the process of getting TPA passed, and the thing was like almost completed. So that's just very backwards to me. You send your members of Congress to represent you, and the idea that they are going to weigh in on these issues at the end of the negotiation is not good. So TPP is now finalized. All the individual countries get to decide whether or not they want to finally sign off on it. I do not support TPP. If it came up for a vote tomorrow, I'd vote against it. I know that we can do better, and again, we should be negotiating trade deals with other countries, but that doesn't mean that just because you entered into a trade deal that it's automatically good. It has to be a deal that is good for us. I don't like the idea of negotiating with foreign countries where we get played at the negotiating table, and we've seen examples of that on many different fronts, one of which is the TPP. And there was one other thing you wanted me to okay, I guess right before we opened it up, I would encourage you to reach out to my office if you have any issues with any federal agencies or any questions on bills that you're reading about, something we introduced, someone else introduced. Let me know where you stand on issues. I actually do care where you stand and why. That helps me make a decision to best represent you. So I would encourage you to reach out. Now, we do have people who contact us who have, and I think Bill was the one who was working the constituent issue where they wanted you to get the cat out of the tree. Yeah. So we have people contact us for all different kinds of issues. I would ask if you were to contact us, ideally, it's about I'm sorry, you just raised your hand. You weren't the one with the cat, were you? It's so embarrassing. That's great. I would encourage you, if you are reaching out to us, you would want the cab.
No, but Keystone is on the top.
Oh, Keystone, okay. You know, we have people contact us, you know, they have a pothole at the end of their driveway, I don't have a paver, but, so here's the difference between our office and other offices. We still want to try to help, so we will make the contact with you to, like, you know, your local town council person, or, you know, county legislator, or state legislator, whatever agency it is. So I don't hesitate to reach out, but if, you know, ideally, if it's on a federal issue, then you're reaching out to us. Keystone Pipeline, that's something that over a year ago passed the House and the Senate, was vetoed by the president. It's pretty much a dead issue right about now, and I haven't heard anything about it in many months. But a very hot topic about 13 months ago or so. I haven't heard it come up really during the presidential campaign. I haven't heard much of it from my colleagues who actually represent those areas. So I don't know what the status is of it, but I will say that I have not heard much about it in at least a year. But I'll let you know if it comes back up, if it becomes a hot topic again. So I guess we'll start over here and work our way around.
Hi, Mrs. Zeldin. I'm Albert Hoppy. And getting back to what you first said about the facility, the new facility in Denver, as a veteran, I just find those cost overruns disgusting. And if it was a private sector developer, it would be being bombed. So is there anybody accountable for this? Are people, you know, being held accountable, losing their jobs, or what's happening with that?
So it's worse than not being held accountable. The person who's the general contractor, the company that's the general contractor, is operating under a contract of 90 days or $70 million. Whichever gets used up first automatically triggers the next 90 days or $70 million contract. So in order to get your hands on the next $70 million contract, you have to burn through this $70 million contract quickly. A few things. One is you have to, where do we start? Okay, first is you need to replace the secretary. You can't replace the secretary with anyone. Every time the secretary of the VA gets replaced by someone else, we're like, oh, this is great, there's somebody new. It matters who it is. That person needs to be very serious about changing the culture of the VA. And we've actually put some really good people into that position who have drastically underperformed. Others we should have seen coming. So we will have a new secretary of VA over the course of the next 9 to 10 months. But it's not just about putting anyone in there to you put in there. That's one. Two is you have to change current law, because what we have seen is that in some cases the secretary of the VA has fired someone who's like a VA hospital director, like the Stratton VA Hospital up in Albany, and the Merit Systems Review Board actually overturned the VA and says you can't fire that person. So from that standpoint, you need to change the law. Not so much with the upper management, but with a poor performing employee at any level. The House passed the VA Accountability Act, which changes the standard that is needed in order to fire a poor performing employee. The House has passed it, the Senate hasn't passed it yet, but the Senate is trying to pass it this year. So that would be a very helpful tool that would allow the Secretary legally to have the authority to fire certain employees that the Secretary can't right now. So that's the second piece. Third is the appropriations process. We have, the House and Senate will have joint VA committee hearings where we will have one national VSO after another come in. VFW, the American Legion, DAV, Vietnam Vets of America, and the list goes on. And the national VSOs advocate against actions that would take away funding from the VA. I haven't quite figured out exactly why they advocate the way that they do. I understand that they believe in the VA system and, but the way that they are fighting actually makes it hard for us to defund certain things and to move money around when they're essentially lobbying against efforts that we have. One of the things, something that I support, for example, is called the VA Choice Program, but it needs to be reformed. I believe if you have a VA benefit, you should be able to take your benefit wherever you want. First Congressional District, you live in Montauk, if you live in Orient, it's a full day to go to the VA hospital in Northport and back. I got a VA Veterans Health Clinic set up in Matterville about a year ago, which is good because maybe a full day trip becomes a half day trip for the services that are available in that Veterans Health Clinic. But I believe that you should just be able to go to any provider not too far from your house, be able to use your VA benefit instead of having to go all the way to the VA hospital in Northport. You earned it. That is a change. That's an example of a change that some of the national VSOs lobby against because they're afraid that it would take so much money away from a VA hospital that you might see a VA hospital go out. Or they might lose their doctor and they're happy with their doctor. So it's it becomes a complicated issue strategically to get across the finish line when you have the veterans advocating against certain changes. And then one final thing on it, on the issue, another thing that needs to change is the VA has something called has a relocation incentive bonus. There was a woman who was based in Washington, D.C., who wanted to move to Philadelphia. That's where her family's from. She wanted to go to Philadelphia. She wanted to take over the hospital in Philadelphia. In order to do that, she arranged to have the person in charge of the VA hospital in Philadelphia moved to take over the VA hospital in Los Angeles. That person did not want to leave, but she arranged it. On top of it, when it's all said and done, she got herself paid a $227,000 relocation incentive bonus. In order to move, a move that she was putting in place for her own happiness, the Office of the Inspector General for the Department of Veterans Affairs said that this needs to be referred to the Department of Justice. The VA, the Secretary, and his team was so offended by this, they don't turn it over to the Department of Justice. They turn on their own Inspector General. They go after their own Inspector General and say, I don't know what they were thinking. Probably because it was the Secretary's office that signed off on the relocation of the office in the first place. So there's a few different things with regards to legislation and oversight and changing the culture as well. And there's a question there.
I just wondered, I know like the state and the county and smaller jurisdictions have grant opportunities. Are there any grant opportunities that organizations like ourselves can apply for through on the federal level or through your office?
So Congress doesn't have earmarks anymore. In 2009, Congress got rid of earmarks. There could be a budget where you add a line into it and say $1 billion to the Rocky Point Civic Association. You used to, like legally, you can add a line to a budget for a very specific purpose. You can't do that anymore. The federal government still spends trillions of dollars every year. Now, 2/3 of that is mandatory spending: Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, debt on interest on our debt. So we're talking about a little over $2 trillion that gets spent every year just that's mandatory spending. Congress appropriates just over $1 trillion annually. Now, if you look at what that funding is, most of that is for the military. Out of a $1.1 trillion budget, you'll find close to $600 billion of that will be for the military. Approximately another $100 billion will be for our veterans. So, but there is that still leaves you with a few $100 billion that gets spent. So, and that money, how do you get? But by the way, some of that money is for programs that currently exist. You don't actually submit a. It might be like for the the transportation bills passed last December, and there's the highway trust fund that we all pay into with gas tax, and there's certain things that are all set by federal formulas. However, here's the point. I want to give you that background aside from it just being informative in general, to answer your question, I have people come to me and they want to ask for a grant for a specific purpose. We do the research. We find that there is no pot of money that exists where that person or that local government or that group is an authorized applicant to apply from that pot, to disperse it for that purpose. It's just, you can't do it legally. And then I have times where someone will come to me with a specific ask, and we'll find 3 different ways to fund it. And then they're applying, Southampton Town, applying for funding to raise Dune Road. They can apply through a Tiger grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation, a hazard mitigation grant, which actually goes to the New York State Department of Homeland Security. There's the GRR with Fire Island Montauk Point plan, where they're applying for from there. So these are all examples of pots where they are a legal applicant, where it can be dispersed for that legal purpose, and now they're applying to different places now. So here's the key. You had a general question. I guess the specific question that we can help research for you is when you have, there's something that you want to apply for specifically, then with your specific question, we'll find out whether or not there's a pot of money that you're allowed to apply for. One question on the back, and I'll come back up front.
Thank you, Congressman Lee. You do a fantastic job, and I voted for you. And I've watched your progress over this last year. So you're super honest, and I appreciate all your hard work and your dedication. No. But you were talking about. We love Rocky Point. We want to make it great, but you talk about what you do on a federal level, and you're talking about also your involvement in transportation, and it being 2016. One of the things. We know that, talking about Long Island being a brain drain and the cost of living, and Suffolk County is the most expensive place in the country almost to live, Nassau and Suffolk County. So from a transportation perspective, I used to work in Manhattan. When I came out here, I don't work in Manhattan anymore. Getting a light rail to go to Manhattan, upgrading our transportation out here to Manhattan, etc. Can you talk a little bit about your support? You talked about the Army Corps of Engineers and also what you're doing for the veterans. Can you talk about how the federal government supports transportation infrastructure on Long Island?
Yeah, aside from that one committee I'm also on 3 subcommittees of transportation infrastructure. One of them is the railroads subcommittee. I served for 4 years in the state senate. I was on the transportation committee there as well. In my first year, what we did was we moved up. It was well over $100 million. The second track project between Ronkonkoma and Farmingdale. You have the East Side Access project, the MTA, which is that's been going on for decades, but we actually visited it. The project is actually happening underground. It's amazing what's going on there, and I think the first phase is not too far away from actually coming online.
So can you go into what does that mean?
There's going to be a few things. One is, let's say you have you want to help Iceland MacArthur Airport. You want to have more train service from the Ronkonkoma branch. There is maybe you want to improve the Route 110 corridor. Everything's kind of connected in many ways through that second track project. Having East Side Access for those who are commuting does take time off of their commute with more options. You can add additional trains. There's also debate going on right now as far as a 3rd track in Nassau County. That's a little bit more controversial because folks in the middle of Nassau County in some areas are opposing it. But that's some of the rail stuff that's going on. There's also, we have Brookhaven Rail Terminal now open. So you're seeing not just passenger freight on the tracks, you're seeing some cargo get shipped. It actually helps create jobs because you're seeing so many different companies start to use Brookhaven Rail Terminal. It's starting to really fill up. They pay taxes, they employ locals. So that's important as well. In December, we passed a 5-year fully funded highway bill. For the first time in 10 years, we've had a long-term highway bill. In the bill, I had a legislative proposal that got included. It's passed, it's now law, called the Safe Bridges Act. Up until 2012, right before 2012, New York State got over $200 million for our state and local bridges on like an annual basis. And it went to zero. This one pot of money went from just over $200 million to zero as a result of a formula change in 2012. Safe Bridges Act reverses it, so the number's not going to go back up. That's funding to repair our state and local bridges. We have over 80 bridges just in the first congressional district that are functionally obsolete, structurally deficient. In order to get federal funding for any of those bridges, it required us to get the Safe Bridges Act included in the highway bill. And that's got passed and signed into law. And a lot of people, if I come across the average person in the United States of America and I say, like, name one thing that Congress has done, in the last, 4 years, it's nothing. And people are frustrated right now. So, well, name one thing that Congress has ever done ever. And like, all across America, people are probably saying, nothing. Congress has never done anything. But, the fact is, in a 24-hour news cycle, and just like the way we're getting our news and what's being reported, when things do get done, we don't talk about it. The media doesn't talk about it. But the example, just now in December, we passed the 5-year fully funded highway bill. I had an education proposal that was passed and signed into law that allows states to opt out of Common Core without penalty from the federal government. That got done. The Zeldin Act was permanently extended. Like, there was a lot that was done. It was like a week. And the Zeldin Act's a perfect example. We had press conferences where Jon Stewart, down in D.C., everyone was talking about it not getting done yet. It was on a Daily Show, and everyone was talking about the Zeldin Act needs to get permanently extended. And then it actually got permanently extended, and that wasn't newsworthy. It was newsworthy when it wasn't done yet. So things do get done, but that's probably the biggest transportation infrastructure initiative in years that got done, was passing that highway bill in 2010. Now, if you have a specific ask, if there's something here in the local community that you want to apply for funding for, it's going to require just identifying a specific project, and I'm going to get to you in 1 second. There was a question here, and I'll get to you. Then I would ask, whether it's through, if you all as a group wanted to have a discussion before coming to me, or if you all want to come to me individually, that's fine too. And then the key is just making sure that we can identify a pot of money that you can apply for, that if it's a town road, or it's a county road, or a county bridge, and then we do what we can to assist. And in many respects, a lot of this stuff requires different levels of government to work together. So if you want to repair, if you have a local bridge somewhere around here that you want to get a project for, the federal government is sending the money to the state. The state is deciding where in the state to spend the money. So it actually requires, it might be a county bridge, and it's the county applying to the state for federal funding, but the state's deciding, which bridges are going to get it. So I would say, if we're talking about specifics, I would just let us know specifically what project you have in mind, then we'll see if there's any way we can help get done.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Congressman Zeldin. In the paper of March 24th, which was the Community Journal, there was a nice article regarding the $2.2 million that you got for the Shore and Miller Place beaches, and because of the erosion after Superstorm Sandy, and how you're working with Brookhaven Town to get this work done, and the money came through FEMA. My question is, can you explain the process of how, even though they're private beaches, because we have an issue here too in Rocky Point, it was announced in October, right here at our meeting, that we would be getting some money for some of the erosion on our beaches, and how FEMA money can properly be used for this, even though they are beach associations, because of the mitigation funds, etc.
The Rocky Point issue, is it Sandy related?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
and is there an application actually that's been submitted already?
Yes, and no, 1.2 million was granted.
Oh, it's granted,
FEMA.
okay.
We'd like to know the process.
Oh, you're just talking about the 2.2 million?
This 2.2, and any of the FEMA money being able to be used for this because of catastrophic accidents like.
So what happened in Sandy, not just from the Mother Nature piece, but also the federal response, it's a very unique situation. So what I'm about to tell you is not the way things normally go, but after Superstorm Sandy hit, Congress appropriated $60 billion. $30 billion of that was for New York, $30 billion of that was for outside New York. Of that $30 billion, half of that was for New York City, the other half was for outside of New York City. So now that $30 billion pot just became $15 billion. The $15 billion that's left, half of that was direct FEMA reimbursements, like individuals You know, people were getting checks directly from the federal government. That's like $7.5 billion. The other $7.5 billion is money that went from the feds to the state, and the state created different pots of money. Now, the $60 billion, you know, you read it in the paper, you think the money was showing up the next day. It's actually it comes to New York State over the course of years. It's like 4 to 5 years. The state's getting these small chunks of money to add up to what is $7.5 billion to be used, that Albany created these different pots for. But I will say, as far as, and then, so it's like $7.5 billion, but you know, maybe it was like $1.5 billion to $3 billion, I think, in like the first year. And then it was getting paid in like $1 to $1.5 billion chunks, like every 6 to 9 to 12 months. So many different pots of money. Some you have to be a local government in order to apply for it. Some you have to be an individual. You're applying for it for your own home. Some cases you have to be a business in order to apply for, you know, that pot of money. But there is a lot of sandy money that was not going to government. I would say, I don't want to say off the cuff it was most, but any type of sandy money that you see going to any entity that is not public, there are thousands and thousands of examples just in New York 1, just in our congressional district, especially for those who saw flooding. So a lot of money went to. It is an authorized. You are an authorized applicant, even if it's not a public, even if it's not a public beach or you know a public local government. So you're seeing money all around the coastline, both public, going to both public and private entities for sandy recovery. And it's very unique. What you saw with regards to sandy recovery is not the normal process with regards to just about anything, good and bad ways. Yes, sir.
Jeff Carlson, we've met, good and involved with each other.
I didn't recognize you.
Sometimes usually my work clothes when I see it. So anyway, at the beginning of your term, we met down at your office, me and Mark, and about, I don't know if you were here and heard me give my.
Rails and Trails.
You got it. So legislator Anchor put together an advisory board. This thing's been brought, did you hear this already?
No.
Okay, it's been brought to, kind of like put on the front.
I mean, it was, as in the hear from about it.
Tonight, I told everybody in here where we're at. So Anchor put together an advisory board. I'm representing Rocky Point Civic, and all the neighboring civics got together. And it's the pot's on the front burner again. We're talking about this. And I understand it that you were instrumental in securing $835 million through the TAP program. Am I saying this wrong? Not for us, but like that's what I was going to ask you. That there was
as part of the highway bill.
Yeah, like the transportation alternative program or something. There's all this money that's available.
Yeah, I actually carried we carried the amendment, and I say we. I like to give. See, Kevin works so hard. We say we. I should say I, but I sure credit with Kevin. Kevin did a lot of the work behind the scenes, but we carried our office carried the legislative effort to get included in the highway bill.
Okay, so anyway, there's this pool of money, and I don't fully understand how this works, and neither did Congressman Bishop. And this has been going on, you know how long. So there's this money that's divvy up, I guess, throughout the country to different programs that are going on like this. And I'm wondering, we have gotten word now that there's like still $10 million available for us to do this project with, and now through this thing, there's possibly more to be added to that. Can you talk about that?
Okay. Now, I would ask Bill or Kevin to correct me at any point if I give any information that's not 100% right. I'm going to share it with my understanding. There was originally there was approval for the funding. The project went into this, was basically stalled for a few years. During that period of a few years, I believe that money, this is going back a few years ago now, I believe that money was used, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, that money went elsewhere?
The money was rescinded because it wasn't used. If you don't use money, it apparently goes back to the government eventually, which is probably a good thing, but so now we're trying to claw it back.
And now, right, and so there was this period of time that went by where things were kind of stalled, and the money that was going to be used for this project wasn't used for this project, it was used for other stuff. which I have experienced as a state senator with so many projects up in Albany, where it's almost like by calendar year, they are moving, I don't say that they're moving money around, this doesn't sound good, but they're essentially moving money around. My understanding is that there's a possibility that we can get that money back, but it has to be completed by a certain date that is very soon.
So just real quick, one of the reasons I'm here this week from Washington is I'm meeting with Ms. Anker and all the stakeholders on Friday. So hopefully we'll have it all hatched out on Friday. But LIPA's involved, you need an easement from LIPA because there's power lines, and Congressman Bishop secured an earmark, but then the follow-through wasn't there, so the money was rescinded. But now we're trying to get the state, where everyone's going to be in the room on Friday to hopefully seal the deal.
In other words, we're thinking that that 10 million that was secured 14 years ago is now gone.
No, it's not gone. I think the New York State Commissioner of Transportation, who we have a great relationship with, Matt Driscoll, used to be mayor of Syracuse, they're going to help claw it back. It's still available. It's in purgatory. We just got to pull it out from purgatory.
Yeah, and I think that if we are successful at doing it, and here's the good news, is that if we're successful at clawing it back, that we're going to have to do the project without delay. I don't think that we can claw it back and then have 3 years of stagnancy. I think that if the state DOT is to get the money back into this project, that we are going to have to do it as quickly as possible.
I'm going to try to make that happen.
Are you at the meeting on Friday or?
No.
No, I mean, I don't know if that's any issue, if, Jeff would come. I vouch for him this weekend.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, there was one other hand over here? I just, you'll be next, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Joe's already standing.
That's fine.
Okay, Joe.
After you, sir.
First of all, Congressman Zeldin, thank you for your service, and thank you for what you do for the veterans. I appreciate that from the veterans. One question, and I know I've heard you speak about it before, is our flag. Is there any way that we can create a bill that would say there could be a hate crime if somebody burns or steps on our flag?
There's actually a law here in Suffolk. I was just talking to Tom Ronayne just an hour ago, where I saw you, Joe. Tom says that there's a law here in Suffolk County that was signed by Pat Halpin years ago, and I asked him what the punishment was, and I think he said it was a misdemeanor. We didn't get into a lot of details. I don't want to put him too much on the spot right there, so, but he wanted to point out to me that we had this law here in some county that was signed a really long time ago. I actually did an interview yesterday morning with regards to a flag that was being stepped on, stomped on, and I personally, I find it very offensive and outrageous. I think of those who, from this community, and all, from our district, who have sacrificed a great deal in defense of that flag. And if I was to be really candid, we're all friends here. If you want to step on the flag, I wouldn't mind if you just left the country altogether. But I can't speak for anyone else when I say that. But if you don't love our country, then you could leave. I mean, that's an option too. I'd be all in favor of taking an action that that draws a line. I believe strongly in our First Amendment, but that is so over the top offensive to be desecrating an American flag. And I think that there's so many people who so passionately are advocating for something to be done for that to be criminal. That whatever that final draft looks like, I probably wouldn't have a very difficult time getting to yes. I would want to read it first. But if someone was stomping on a flag and someone walked over, some member of law enforcement walked over and put handcuffs on them and picked our flag up off the ground and and protected it in that situation. Like, the fact that current law wouldn't allow that to happen is absurd to me. So some kind of a change would need to be made to give law enforcement that authority. Right now, it's not a clear-cut crime that would allow a corrective action. By the way, the interview I gave yesterday morning just on Facebook, it's like over 5.5 million views, which is pretty crazy. Like 20 years ago, if you remember Congress, you didn't have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat or emails or teletown halls, the list goes on. A lot of different ways to communicate with constituents that we didn't have 20 years ago. So it's amazing. I saw like a Facebook post on Fox Business. It was they're over 5.5 million views. Pretty cool. But I don't want to digress too much into what I was talking about. That was more of a political sense, but just from the nature of stomping on the flag, I would be supportive of an intelligent corrective action that would allow you to do something about it when you're witnessing it, because it is highly offensive. And too many people have weighed in all across the country wanting to see some kind of legislation passed.
This is off the beaten path a little bit, but I'm wondering, you do grants for transportation only? Is that?
Oh no, anything.
So like, all right.
Well, anything that's legal.
No. All right, so now we have a piece of property sitting over here that we might want to obtain as a community. How would we go about doing that?
Who owns it?
Right now? A family,
And
privately owned.
And who would be obtaining it?
Developer.
Well, there's a developer looking to obtain it. However, we're throwing around ideas as to what to do with it. So we were trying to see if there's any way that the community can obtain it, the town itself. Not the town of Brookhaven per se.
Hamlet of Rocky Point.
The town, right, Rocky Point Hamlet.
Everybody here.
I don't know, but I am more than happy to try to see if there's a pot of money that you can possibly ask for. Off the top of my head, I don't know of one. However, don't take that as a no, just take that as an I would love to be helpful in finding out whether or not there is something that exists.
Cool, will you do that with me?
Yeah.
A library?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a privately owned thing, but a library is passed on the county line.
Right.
Yeah, like Charlotte has a library.
I don't know of an example of an entity, public or private, on Long Island that is, acquiring private property like that from someone else. However, I'd love to find out if that's, something that can be done.
Another topic, climate change. I know that we need, as a whole country, as a whole world, towards a much greener environment. And some of what's happening now is with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is building out methane gas pipelines. And there's a lot of research into this, whether there's an overbuild and what's happening to that. But I think, I'm kind of just generally asking your view as you go forward in terms of maybe additional work towards solar or additional towards wind, or however we can move in a direction that's going to, especially in our local environment on the island. So what is your sense of how the Congress is moving towards more energy proposals, more efficiency?
That was part of an effort in 2015 to get more investment into alternative energy research. From a parochial end, the ask greatly benefits our efforts at Brookhaven National Lab as well as SUNY Stony Brook. It was a good opportunity for us to be able to bring funding home to our own district for that purpose. So that's from the alternative energy standpoint. Going back to my time, 4 years up in Albany in the state senate, there was heavy investment that was made with regards to solar, very active debate, something that I was supportive of back then. More globally, we have, we can look at Long Island's air quality, and a lot of what we are experiencing that might have a negative impact on our own environment isn't necessarily a direct result of what Long Islanders are doing, as much as what other states might be doing. And you go even more globally than that, is we could take certain corrective actions as a country, some of what we are negotiating with other countries around the world, to call it voluntary is being generous as far as what other countries are signing up to do. You know, I think that there's a lot of politicizing of the issue, and instead of it being a conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat battle sometimes over specific policy proposals, I think that there are a lot of solutions that are they're non-controversial, that all sides can agree to. We see it with the alternative energy research that we were able to get to be able to bring back home to the lab and to Stony Brook. But I think as far as what we might want to be accomplishing as an island, or what we might be trying to accomplish as a country, the reality is we're not going to do this on our own, and we also have to do it where it's smart policy, that you're narrowly getting your intended result as opposed to just putting together a bill draft and passing it without thoroughly debating and vetting it to make sure that you don't have too many unintended consequences, because we're not trying to hurt people while we're trying to help people at the same time. We're seeing it right now with the dialogue that's going on with CEOs of leaders of the coal industry, where there's new technologies, new standards that the most active members of Congress on this issue are literally meeting with what might be their political nemesis in the industry, and they're trying to work out certain improvements on standards and technologies. And then there's a way to just evolve as a nation and move towards new ways of being able to fuel our homes or provide electricity, have our cars or vehicles operating efficiently. But we have to advance our technology inside of, for example, the vehicles themselves, because there are some very cheap parts that some manufacturers aren't adding, which is preventing access to some of these alternative methods of being able to power a vehicle, for example. So that's working with the industry for them to put that $100 part inside of their vehicle to allow you to use some of the new technologies that are out there too. So part of this is legislative, part of it is bigger than that, because we're talking about internationally, globally, talking through some of these issues. Some progress that's been made hasn't been through legislation, it's just been through effective dialogue. And but it's something that's high on Congress's radar for sure.
Yeah, hi, Jane Fasula. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about your perspective on the Supreme Court appointment. What's happening with that and why?
Well, first off, a lot of people might not realize that Judge Scalia, his family's actually, a lot of his family's out here in the 1st Congressional District. One of the things that was pretty outrageous to me was right after Judge Scalia passed away, the people on both sides of this fight, literally within hours. Some people talking about how we have to nominate a new judge, confirm him right away. Others saying we're never going to, nominate, not going to confirm anyone. It's like, can we at least take the time to allow, a nation and a family to mourn the loss of a Supreme Court justice before we move to that part of the debate? Judge Scalia obviously has, since been mourned and buried. And now the debate has moved on to the point where just a couple weeks ago, the president has nominated a Supreme Court justice. If it was 100 years ago, and it was 1916, and we said, okay, 100 years from now, there's going to be a presidential election year vacancy. What do you think is going to happen? I would tell you 100 years ago, that whatever party is in power in the White House is going to say, we need to nominate a justice, and that person needs to be confirmed as quickly as possible. And whatever party is not in power in the White House is going to say, no, we need to let the American people decide this November. If we had this conversation in 2016, right now, predicting what would happen 100 years from now, say the same exact thing. Not saying, good, bad, indifferent, just the reality of our system is that you have these debates. So 87, 88, you have it with Reagan in the White House, Robert Bork's nomination gets tanked. You have 92, Joe Biden on the floor of the Senate lobbying against confirming a Supreme Court justice. 2007, Chuck Schumer lobbying against confirming any of George W. Bush's Supreme Court vacancies. 2016, it's the same exact debate. Parties have flipped. That you have, some people are saying, well, I won't meet with them, others saying won't have a hearing, others saying won't have it confirmed. The Senate constitutionally is given the authority of advice and consent. Now, under Merrick Garland's own legal precedent, the irony here is that he would say that because it says advice and consent, it doesn't say when, it's up to the Senate to decide when, and it's as long as the Senate would like, under Merrick Garland's own precedent in his own cases. When something is silent, it is up to that body to decide the when. As far as the Senate goes, I'm in the House, so I'm not part of all these inside conversations inside the conferences. The decision was made by some members of the majority party to meet with Merrick Garland. There was a decision made by others not to meet with him individually. They were making that decision up on their own. I don't think that's as significant as the end result. As far as hearings go, I think it would be ultimately up to the American people to demand that there are hearings, and unless there's something drastic that takes place, I don't even predict that there's going to be hearings. If there are hearings, and it goes to the point where there's a confirmation vote, I don't see any way that Merrick Garland's going to get confirmed between now and November. One of the things that's the beauty about our system is that if the Democrat was to win the White House in November, I put $1 down on it that everything flips, and you see movement to confirm him by the Republicans with the Democrats who are advocating for confirming him right now. The Democrats would be looking to hold off on it to wait until the new person comes into office. The entire process is so completely imperfect and beautiful at the same time, depending on how you analyze our nation, our process, our Constitution. But the reality is that the presidential election year vacancy, everyone can do themselves a huge favor, not everyone here in this room, everyone in Congress can do themselves a huge favor and not become their own victims of putting their foot in their mouth by just understanding that we don't confirm Supreme Court justices in this close to an election. It doesn't happen because of politics. But 4 years from now, 8 years from now, you can see the same thing flip with the parties completely opposite. Those are a few of my thoughts on it. I don't know if maybe my prediction is wrong, and that he might be confirmed between now and November. I don't see it. But the real irony here is where you want to have a good chuckle as far as watching this flip again, is if you see a Democrat get elected in November, the whole thing's going to flip and the Republicans will be moving to confirm Merrick Garland. I don't know what time I'm good. I'd stay here all night, but what time's the meeting over?
When you wait.
Okay. One other question.
Hi, hello, Nicole Kelly. I work in Portland National Laboratory. First of all, I just want to thank you for being so approachable about issues and for your service to staff. But I just wanted to say if we could maybe have more support and a voice for the laboratory. In recent years, we've had massive funding cuts, and we're just looking for maybe more voices of Congress, to try to help and replenish some of the cuts that we faced in the last 5 to 7 years.
First off, yeah, I've been in the lab many times. I meet with Dune often, and others with the team. I was just there when, I guess it was almost a year ago now, when an amazing capital investment was started with NSLS2. And the research is already starting to yield amazing positive results from what I hear. There have been so many votes, individual votes, with regards to science research, the money that would go to Brookhaven National Lab, a lot of individual votes. If you look at my voting record, it has been, I'm rock solid as far as fighting on behalf of Brookhaven National Lab. These are individual amendments that are filed to bills where people want to defund this, move it to that. It becomes very parochial. But because I represent one of just a handful of national laboratories, our mindset when approaching all those individual votes in many respects may even be breaking from my own party on some of this stuff in order to fight for the lab. I can't tell you how many letters I've signed. Something that was interesting, when I was up in Albany, if you signed a letter, it's like, it's a letter. Like, what does that mean? You signed a letter. In Congress, a lot actually gets done with letters. It's like a letter gets signed and there's 40 people that signed the letter and something gets done as a result of it. But there have been a lot of letters that have been circulated with regards to some of our science funding. So I would ask if you talk to Dune, you talk to anyone else with the government affairs team about working with us, and especially Kevin and Matt Scott in my DC office. I mean, we're just trying to get to yes every single time you guys have reached out. I mean, offhand, I can't think of one time that we weren't able to figure out how to get to yes to try to help out.
And we appreciate you trying to.
Yeah, no, I would say one of the issues is I'm one of literally a handful of representatives who actually represents the National Laboratory. So you were talking about 430 plus members of the House, just the House, who don't have a National Laboratory in their district. So, I mean, that's one of the challenges on the education front. You have a lot of members who just have no idea, how this plays out. Like, okay, so you are recreating the creation of Earth. It sounds like they might say that sounds like an interesting, fun experiment, but maybe we should fund this instead. But people need to understand how a particular project leads to advanced technology with batteries, and General Electric is expanding in Schenectady because of a research project done by some folks at the Brookhaven National Lab. A lot of people don't realize the connections and everything.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Valerie Butler. As more of an insider than any of us here, if Mr. Trump does not get the nomination on the first ballot, how do you think it will go?
I was hoping you would tell me.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah,
would you share your feelings?
Yeah, first off, I would imagine maybe someone's checked their phone while we were here. I don't know what happened in Wisconsin. But for the next 2 weeks, all eyes are going to be on New York. There's 95 delegates on the Republican side. I think about 247-ish on the Democratic side. And really nothing else going on. So there might be some conversation starting about California, beyond New York, but they're going to be, all 5 of them are going to be spending a whole lot of time here. I would really, in order to accurately predict what's going to happen on the first ballot, let alone the second, to accurately predict what's going to go on the first ballot, it would be great if you were able to tell me exactly what the delegate count is going to be going into the convention. If any candidate going into this process was going to get to 1237, because you're bound to your delegates, that person's going to get nominated. If someone doesn't get to 1237, but they get close to 1237, I would predict that they would get it on the second ballot. If it ends up very close, and no one is that close to 1237, you may get to the point where it's like a 5th ballot, a sixth ballot, where I can't even tell you who it's going to be. And it may not be one of those 3. I'm not predicting that. Again, it really depends on what the delegate count is to predict what's going to happen on the first or second ballot. But, I mean, it's the first time in my lifetime, probably the first time in anyone's lifetime witnessing something like this. I mean, there's other things that you can compare it to first time like this, you know, and it's wild stuff. I mean, when Donald Trump said what he said about John McCain, about his military service, like I thought, okay, like that's the end of his campaign. And then the next poll comes out, he's in first place. Like whatever I thought I knew about handicapping a political race, you just basically at that point, like I don't know. And as well, like on the other side, I mean, it's amazing how like competitive it is between the two of them. Yet because of superdelegates, I mean Hillary Clinton is blowing away Bernie Sanders because of the superdelegates. But if you look at the actual result of the voting, I mean it's almost dead even. So it's just the whole thing is just fascinating to watch.
Fantastic. Thank you.
One last one?
Politics being politics, you know, and everybody voting along their party lines, whatever. Do you see positiveness or that, you know, that we can get to work together? Do you think that term limits would help change some of the
I'm so happy that you asked this. Very positive. This is a great question. Well, two parts. One is with regards to term limits. I co-sponsor all sorts of different term limit bills. I believe in term limits. People say, well, we have term limits already when you go to vote. That's true. Because when you go to vote, you can do whatever you want as a district or a state or whatever. But whether it's 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, just pass something. And even without a term limit bill, there's a lot of people who are they kind of term limit themselves, and I can relate to that. Folks who are there for 6 years or 8 years or 12 years, and they decide to move on to something else. Things get done all the time in Washington, and the media doesn't talk about it. So this time a year ago, we did something called the Doc Fix. We overhauled the sustainable growth rate, $3.9 trillion of federal savings. First entitlement reform, major entitlement reform in 20 years. The media never talked about it because almost 400 members in the House of Representatives voted for it. The Clay Hunt Save Act to help our veterans with who are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder passed. The House, Senate signed into law. Sustainable growth rate, the Doc Fix, passed, signed into law. Clay Hunt Save Act, no one's heard anything about it because it flew through the process. It wasn't controversial enough.
How do we get it out there? How do we get it to be seen?
Well, I mean, a lot of that is on us who care enough to get the message out. So, I cited two things earlier. I was talking about a long-term highway bill getting done, or permanently reauthorizing the Zadroga Act. I could give you examples throughout the entire year of 2015 where Republicans and Democrats worked together to get something done. Like productively, it was friendly, it was very positive, and we got the end result that we were looking for. There are times where something doesn't get done because it's a bad idea. So like that's not a bad thing. Like if something doesn't get done because of partisan bickering, but it's actually a bad idea, that we don't really have an issue with that. There are times where things don't get done because of partisan bickering, and it should. That's what everyone's frustrated about. But that gets made out to be 100% of what happens. And the reality is that every single day that I'm down there, if I open up the books, we just go from one day to the next, I can point to something that happens every single day where both parties work together to get something positive done. But if you are the producer of a national TV show, and you're deciding what to talk about, you're probably going to spend just about your entire hour on the presidential race. If you have any extra time, maybe you'll talk about something that blew up somewhere, that day or the day before. And if you are going to talk about something that's going on in Congress, or in Washington, you're probably talking about something that's not getting done, not something that actually is getting done. It is not going to sell a newspaper tomorrow that I didn't cheat on my wife tonight. It doesn't sell a paper. But if someone else out there did, that'll sell a newspaper. And it's unfortunate. It's the reality. This is what we crave as watching TV or listening to the radio or reading the newspaper are some of the stories that unfortunately they sell, but they create a false narrative to make people think like nothing ever gets done at any level. But things do. And as far as how do you get it out there, I care enough about it to come out in public and talk about it and go, social media and email and town halls and whatnot. And it's also important in your own individual conversations. When, earlier, you reacted positively. Obviously, you care a lot about the Zedroga Act or 9/11 first responders. You might come across someone who didn't realize that it actually got done because all they heard about was all the fighting.
You post them on your website?
Oh yeah, on my website. I probably communicate in 30 different. If I went down the list, like 30 different ways to get stuff out. And someone has to actually, like I'll post something on my website. Somebody has to physically go to my website to know, that I posted that day on there.
Well, we'll do that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Oh, 50-50, you will be adjourned, wait. Bring it up here, This is only gets the pitch. Oh. All right.
I think they have a little